everybody, and welcome back to Pauper Dragon Highlander, where today we have a new layout. Yay! If you look over below me, you see the commander of today, hreos, God of Passage. If you look to this side, or to this side, whichever side it's on, I don't know how the camera looks at it. Probably, wait, because if the camera's looking this way, then on the video it would be that way. So it's on this side, you can see this nice little title thing which says Pauper Dragon Highlander, and if you look over there, that way, you can see the screen recording that I'm doing. So fancy, yay! But the only thing now is that I can't see myself in the recording, because normally with the old setup and the software I was using, I would see myself on my own screen, but now I don't. Now I just see the cards. And today we are making a hreos, God of Passage deck. And as you can see, hreos is a 5/4 legendary enchantment creature god for 1 white black, 1 and Orzhov. And he is indestructible, and as long as your devotion to white and black is less than 7, hreos isn't a creature. So what does that mean? Well, let's start with devotion. Devotion to white and black is the little pips that are in the card costs. So you have a card, say, like Bygone Bishop. His little pip is 2 and a white. So that means that he has his devotion to white of, if you just included Bygone Bishop, if that's all you had on the field, it would be 1, would be your devotion to white. So your devotion to 2 colors of white and black is just equal to the number of pips of that color and the mana costs of cards you have on the field. So if you have less than 7 devotion to white and black, then that means hreos is not a creature. So basically, he can't attack, he can't block, he can't be targeted by anything that says a creature. He's just a legendary enchantment. But for all intents and purposes, when he's not on the field, he is always a creature, because that ability only activates when he's on the field, which means he still can be your commander, and he can still, I mean, that's the main thing. He can be your commander. For our purposes, that's all you need to know, is that, yeah, he's still a creature, so he can still be your commander, but he is not always a creature. Indestructible is always good, because it means he's going to be staying around for a long time. And his last ability, whenever another creature you own dies, return it to your hand unless target opponent pays 3 life. So that's actually pretty interesting, because what it does is you have anytime anything you own dies. So if someone steals your creature and it dies, it still counts. But just anytime a creature you own dies. So you can get all your creatures back that keep dying, unless an opponent of your choice pays 3 life. If they have 2 life, 1 life, they are unable to pay it, but since it's a cost, they can't say, I'm going to kill myself and just pay the 3 life and go down to -1 or -2. That's not allowed. So if you have someone at really low life, then they're not allowed to pay, and they will always go back to your hand. If you have someone at 3 life, they could commit suicide and pay the 3 life, but why would you ever do that? That's just kind of, why you wouldn't choose to lose the game just to stop a creature from going back to somebody else's hand? But yeah, that's how his abilities work. And it's actually quite interesting, because the deck that we're building today breaks almost every single rule of all the commander decks that we have built in the past. It breaks the rules of Commander, breaks the rules of Magic, and it breaks the rules of Pauper that I had set out from video 1. But don't click away so soon. It's not as bad as you think. we do have a very interesting deck that does or will follow these rules. Now, let's start with the breaking commander and breaking magic rules. That's because if you haven't noticed already by the cards on our screen, if you haven't looked them over at all, you may not have noticed that we have the rat colony in the rat section. Now, rat colony is quite an interesting... Wait a second. Does this... Wait, can you do this with all your... Oh, I did not know this. Hold up, this is a new feature I'm just discovering about Tapped Out. You can just manually take out cards and add in cards. You don't realize how much time I've wasted going to the edit and waiting for the page to load and then manually searching through all my cards to find the one that I wanted to take out. Oh. Well, for the future, I now know that you can manually edit the numbers of each card you have. Okay, so, well, and back on topic, we have rat colonies. 27 of them. You may think, that's not allowed. You can't have more than 4 copies of a card in a magic deck, and in Commander, you can't have more than 1 copy of a card unless it's a basic land, and last I checked, rat colony isn't a basic land. You have swamps, you got plains. Those are going to be your basic lands for our white and black deck. You can't have rat colony, the basic land, and it's not. It's a creature with a little bit of simple text. He is 1 and a black for a 2/1 rat. Rat colony gets +1/+0 for each other rat you control. Okay? And a deck can have any number of cards named rat colony. You could have anywhere from 1 to 99 of the cards in your commander deck be rat colony. Now, granted, having 1 rat colony is mostly useless, because what's it going to do if it's just 1 rat? Having 99 rat colonies is obviously not going to get you anywhere because you can't play anything. But once you get to you can get some pretty good numbers of just what we have 27, just a good number of rats. And this is really interesting because it means you can create a very different kind of deck. You can use certain cards that you wouldn't be able to use, and you can just try out some different strategies. And the cool thing about hreos is he works pretty well with rat colonies. And normally you would see an hreos deck is Shadowborn Apostles, which I'll show you this card. Shadowborn Apostles. Shadowborn Apostles is what normally goes with hreos. And I've seen a lot of those decks. You can find any number of deck texts of just Shadowborn Apostles, hreos, good demons, certain cards like Edgewalker or whatever, and you just win. And it's fun. It combos out. It does what it does. But I don't want to do that. That's too easy to try and throw together a Shadowborn Apostle decks. Plus 549 a card. Woo! That's a little too much for our paupers. So yeah, we'll pass on the Shadowborn, but we're gonna go with Rat Colony, the much simpler card. And Rat Colony, as you can see, still is pretty expensive for a Pauper deck. 69 cents. And that's where breaking the Pauper starts to come into play. Rat Colony costs 69 cents as a near mint card, 55 as a what's EX, I think it's extra good. VG is very good, and G is just good. Which, in Card Kingdom standards, that's pretty true. I've gotten VG cards that just look and feel near mint, and it's surprising. But even if you get it down to 34 cents for just a lowest grade value card, that's still more expensive than most of what our decks are going to run. Most of our 90% of the cards in the decks we've had previous are 25-cent cards. and Rat Colony isn't. So the problem with the Rat Colony, I think, personally, why it's expensive is because it's standard legal. Rat Colony is from the Dominaria set, and it's only from the Dominaria set, which is a set that is legal in the standard format. However, standard is not like Commander. Cards rotate, which means that Rat Colony will rotate out, and since it's almost exclusively in high demand because of standard, and not even exceptionally high demand, just reasonable demand. So once standard rotates out, it should go down in price a pretty good chunk. And that's why I'm considering this still a Pauper deck, even though technically I believe it is around like $30, which compared to your average Commander deck, still pretty good, but for our standards, it's a little high. So the hopes is that when Dominaria rotates out, which is still a while, it's about a year from now, you will be able to get this deck for our $15 to $25 our normal budget range. For now, it's a little bit high for that. Unless you count our commander, hreos, God of Passage, $18.99. Or if you want to get the extra good, it is only $16.14. The most expensive commander we've had yet. And this is one of the reasons why I really want to stress that these decks will have some slightly expensive commanders. I will never have a commander, they say now, but you never know. I'll try not to use any commanders that would be as expensive as the decks that they're in. Because why would you want to do that if you're going for Pauper? This commander is definitely a bit expensive for a single card, but it's nothing compared to some of the other commanders you might find, like an Angus Mackenzie. I'll show you that one. Oh boy, good old Angus Mackenzie. Angus Mackenzie, $259. I would never give you a deck with something like this kind of budget. Or I would never do someone like Gaddock Teague, who has I believe like $50. I wouldn't do a deck with a deck tech of a Gaddock Teague. But $18, $19, $20, that price range is high. Granted, I'm not going to be doing many of those, but I will do some of those because you can't just limit yourself to only the cheapest commanders, the 25-cent commanders, the dollar commanders, because they're just they tend to be not as creative sometimes, or they're a bit limiting in what they do. A lot of them might have any text at all. They might not have any cool abilities. So that's the main thing. Just to get through with all of this, it breaks the game, it breaks Pauper, but a good explanation, and it's fair. It's a fair deck. So with all that out of the way, let's get started on the actual deck tech. As you know, we got 27 Rat Colonies and hreos, God of Passage. And with that, you have the majority of what your deck does. You have rats, you play a bunch of rats, you attack with them because they're going to have huge powers because they get extra power for each other rat you have. And then as soon as when people block them, because they only have one toughness, so people can chump block them with whatever they want, then either they're taking a bunch of damage or giving you back your rats. And that's the main goal of the deck, is just play rats, attack with rats. Let's see. The 4-step plan. Play rat, attack with rat, rat die, rat come back. And that's the goal of your deck, is you just win by overpowering rats. So let's take a look at some of our other rats. We have Rancid Rats, 1 into black for a 1/1 zombie rat with Skulk and Death Touch. It cannot be blocked by creatures with greater power. So that doesn't really matter. The main thing is it has Death Touch, and there's actually 2 more. Ruin Rat is a 1 black for a 1/1 with Death Touch. And when he dies, exile a target card from an opponent's graveyard, and Typhoid Rats is just a black for a 1/1 Death Touch. They're just there to block any really big creatures that you're scared of, because you can just say, hey, anything you attack with, you want to attack with your Blightsteel Colossus? Well, I can block it with a bunch of rats, or that's Blightsteel has trample. Maybe that was not the best analogy. You want to block it with so you want to attack with something big? I don't know. I just say, well, put a rat in front of it and kill it. So it disincentivizes people to attack. Next rat, Nezumi Bone Reader. 1 into black for a rat shaman. 1/1, and pay a black and sacrifice a creature, and target player discards a card. Play this ability only anytime you can play a sorcery. That's pretty good. That's just kind of, if your rats are all about to die, let's say someone board wipes, then what you do is you just say, okay, I'm going to make all my opponents discard a bunch of cards with all my remaining mana, and then I can let my creatures die. Plus, anytime you sacrifice a creature, this guy triggers and says, hey, what about you get that back to your hand, or make that person lose life. Combos nicely. Not infinite combo, but a nice little combo. And finally, Lab Rats. This is a sorcery, and it is just black, and it says put a rat token into play. Treat this as a 1/1 black creature. So you get a 1/1 rat for 1. The interesting thing is it has buyback 4. You may pay an additional 4 when you play the spell. If you do, put it into your hand instead of your graveyard as part of this spell's effect. So for 5 mana, you can repeatedly put out 1/1 rats. And that's just a good power to have, to be able to increase the power of your rat colony whenever you have 5 mana. Our next category is cost less. There's only 2 of these because most of them are kind of expensive, actually. These just make our rats cost less. Our rat colonies, instead of costing 1 and a black, will only cost a black. Bantu's Monument. 3 colorless for legendary artifact. Black creature spells you cast cost 1 less to cast, which includes all of our rats. And whenever you cast a creature spell, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's pretty good. Anytime you cast a rat colony, so if it dies, they send it back to your hand, you cast it again, that's another drain for each opponent. Well, to a degree. It doesn't drain 3 life if you have 3 opponents. It does only give you 1 life, but it does take away 1 life from each of them, so still effectively a drain. Locket of Yesterdays. 1 for an artifact. Spells you play cost 1 less to play for each card with the same name as that spell in your graveyard. Normally, this is useless in the Commander game, because all of your cards have unique names. But when a rat colony has any rat colonies in the graveyard, which you probably will end up with rat colonies in the graveyard, people aren't always going to be letting them come back to your hand. So any rat colony in the graveyard, as long as you have 1, all the others will cost only a black. And it doesn't function with any of the other cards in the deck besides the rat colonies, but there's 27 of them, so I figure it's still a useful thing to have, just to get these rat colonies so much cheaper. Next we have Repeat, which is a category of things that work well when you get to repeat your rat colonies. Vulcanwrath Noble. 3 into black for a 2/2 vampire with flying. And whenever Vulcanwrath Noble or another creature dies, target player loses 1 life and you gain 1 life. That's great. As soon as your rat colonies die, you drain someone for 1. That's good. Jar of Eyeballs. 3 for an artifact. Whenever a creature you control dies, put 2 eyeball counters on Jar of Eyeballs. Get it? Because they die and you collect 2 more eyeballs off of them. But it also has 3 and tap. Remove all eyeball counters from Jar of Eyeballs. Look at the top X cards of your library, where X is the number of eyeball counters removed, this way. put one of them into your hand and the rest on the bottom of your library in any order. So, to simplify this a little bit in case it seems a bit confusing, which it probably does at first read. I know I had to read this maybe twice before I really got what it says, but basically means every creature that dies, you get 2 eyeball counters. Then you pay 3 and get rid of every eyeball counter on it. So if two creatures had died, you get rid of 4, and that means that it resets the eyeball counter, and now you get to look at the top 4 cards and choose one, and you draw that one, and the rest go on the bottom of your library. So it's just extra draw from a jar of eyeballs. Pitiless Plunderer. 3 into black for a 1/4 human pirate. Whenever another creature you control dies, create a colorless treasure artifact token with tap, sacrifice this artifact, and add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. He is ramp. Ramp on a creature, because a lot of creatures are dying in this deck. And finally, Shadows of the Past. 1 into black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature dies, scry 1. That's good. You get to just go through your library whenever your creatures die. But also, 4 into black, each opponent loses 2 life, and you gain 2 life. Alright, so the same kind of effect as Bantu's Monument, right? Except just double the life. But also, you can only activate this ability if there are 4 more creature cards in your graveyard. So we're not going to be doing that very often, but it's a nice thing to add on. Also good to note is that this is an enchantment. Enchantments tend to be pretty hard to kill off in Commander games. You have a lot of artifact removal because there's so many Soul Rings, so many Sensei's Divining Tops, all sorts of different artifacts that run around. You have a lot of creature removal because you gotta have a lot of creature removal. You don't really have much enchantment removal because enchantments just aren't played near as much compared to the other permanent types. And land removal is its own separate, completely different category. Next, we're going to talk about a little thing called extort. Extort reads, whenever you cast a spell, you may pay white or black. If you do, each opponent loses 1 life and you gain that much life. So, unlike Bantu's Monument, where everyone else loses 1 life and you gain 1 life, an extort card says everyone loses 1 life and you gain the total life that was lost. So if you're going against 1 person, it's the same thing. But if you have 3 opponents, like in a Commander game, they lose 1 life each and you gain 3 life. Which, when you're playing so many rats at such low costs, starts to add up. So we have 5 extort cards, and they're all on creatures. I'm not 100% sure, but I believe every card with extort is a creature. And we have Basilica cards, 2 into white, 1/4, Human Soldier with Defender and Extort. Kingpin's Pet, 1 white and a black, for a 2/2 Thrall with Flying and Extort. Knight of Obligation, blah blah blah, Extort, Syndicate, Extort, and Extort. You can look more at the deck list in the description. Down there, below the video, where you can also leave a comment or like the video and subscribe, because we all know that that's what you want to do right now. Leave a comment, like the video, and subscribe. Let's talk about removal. We have 2 pieces of removal, targeted removal that is, Doomblade and Murder. They are just, they destroy creatures, that's it. It's pretty simple. Trample. There's 1 card in the trample category. And you may be wondering, why would you have a category with only 1 card? Well, there used to be about 7. And I cut this deck down a lot, and now it's down to 1. Because I think the majority of time building decks, I spend maybe like 20% of it looking through and just adding a bunch of cards to the deck list, and then about 80% of the time building the deck is, nope, don't want that card, you gotta get rid of that one, gotta get rid of that one, and then eventually you have about 120 cards, and you're sorting through for 20 minutes just to get rid of 1 card. Fun times. Sometimes I feel like I might spend too much time on the deck list, but, it's fun. So anyways, Trample, Dragon Throne of Tarkir. 4 for a legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature has Defender and pay 2 and tap it. Other creatures you control gain trample and get +X/+X until end of turn, where X is this creature's power. Equip 3. So you pay 4 to put it out, you pay 3 to equip it, that's 7, and then you pay 2 more and tap the creature to give all your creatures a bunch of extra power and toughness. That is 9 mana for 1 activation. And that's 11 mana for 2, which, that's a pretty big cost, but I feel like the power that it gives you is so worth it. Because all your rat colonies are getting huge from having other rats. So maybe like you have 5 rats out, and they're all rat colony. Those are 5 creatures with, 6 power? It's a 6/1s. Now, maybe someone has 6/1/1s. Okay, so if you were to attack with all your creatures, then their creatures would just block yours, and everything would die. And what do you gain? You traded a bunch of rats for a bunch of 1/1s. Okay, maybe you get the activations off of hreos, but what else? That's good, but what can you do to make that better? So you have Dragon Throne of Tarkir. You attach that to, say, let's say you had a Basilica Guards out, just to say we have another. Nope, that doesn't work. Let's say you had you attach it to a rat colony. Now you pay 2 and tap it, and all these other rat colonies that were just 6/1s now become 12 6s with trample. No, 12 7s. 12/7 creatures. 12 power, 7 toughness with trample until end of turn. Ooh. Which means they block with those 1/1s. Now you're getting through 11 damage per creature. And that's only having 5 rat colonies out. And you just got through 11 damage per creature. 5 creatures that attacked because you had to tap one to activate Dragon Throne. They just took 55 damage. Which in the realm of Commander means you're dead. You're way dead. That is powerful effect. Up 25. Bantu's Mine. This is just cards that I was looking at when I was making the deck that cost more than 25 cents, so not really relevant to you as much, but good to note in case maybe you're buying it now when the rat colony is still 60-something cents, and you want to cut down on costs. These are the ones. These are the expensive guys. And the rat colonies. The rat colonies are like one of the most expensive parts of the deck right now. But wait, just wait. Bygone Bishop. He should probably be in the repeat category, but he's not yet. 2 and white for a 2/3 Spirit Cleric. Flying, and whenever you cast a creature spell with converted mana cost 3 or less, investigate. Investigate means put a colorless clue artifact token onto the battlefield with 2 and sacrifice it to draw a card. So every rat you cast, you pay 2 mana to cast a rat. Now you get a free creature, or not creature, you get a free artifact that lets you pay an additional 2 to draw a card. And pay 2, draw a card, that's pretty good. Take those. Dark Prophecy. Black, black, black for an enchantment. Whenever a creature you control dies, you draw a card and you lose 1 life. That's pretty good. Think about it like a Phyrexian Arena. Phyrexian Arena is at the beginning of each upkeep, you draw a card and lose 1 life. And that's a decent card. That's played a lot. Now imagine it in a deck where you're throwing out creatures to die over and over and over and over again. So you're going to be drawing a lot of cards. Immortal Servitude. X and 3 of either white or black, or a mix of the 2. Return each creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. So you want to get, maybe someone paid a bunch of life, sent all your rats to the graveyard, and now they're all just sitting there. You can't do anything. You're stuck. All your rats are dead. You're not drawing anything good from your deck. So what do? You pay 5 mana and put all rat colonies, and anything else with 2 converted mana cost, which is most of your rats. Not typhoid rats, but every other rat. And not the lab rats. You know what? You get the point. You get all your rats back. It's fun. Rat Catcher. 4 black black for a 4/4 creature ogre rogue. Fear, which means it can't be blocked except by artifact or black creatures. But it also has, at the beginning of your upkeep, you may search your library for a rat card, put it into your hand, and then shuffle your library. You also have to reveal it, but that's not as big of a deal. Everyone knows you're searching for a rat. You're getting a rat colony probably, so it's good. What does this mean? It means every turn you get a second free draw, and that draw is guaranteed a rat colony. That's extra draw right there. Card advantage. It's all in the card advantage. And that's really good because this deck, as it stands, does not have a whole lot of card advantage. You have hreos itself is decent card advantage in the fact that you get rats back to your hand, but that's card advantage of cards that you've already played. So is it really card advantage as much as it's just saving? It's not as much card advantage as it is bouncing things to your hand instead of them dying, which is still good, but not quite card advantage. Something like Rat Catcher, though, is definitely card advantage. It's a second draw step. And finally, Remembrance. 3 into white. 4, something very good. Whenever a non-token creature you control is put into a graveyard, you may search your library for a copy of that creature card. If you do, reveal that card, put it into your hand, and shuffle your library afterwards. And this is useless in most commander decks, but with Rat Colony, it's good, because every time a Rat Colony dies, now you get to search your library for another one to put into your hand. So if they don't pay the life, then they killed your Rat Colony just for you to get 2 into your hand. They just doubled your Rat Colonies. That's the power of Remembrance, and that's why it's in this deck. I think Remembrance is one of the most expensive cards in this deck. A couple dollars. Remembrance. Let's figure it out. Remembrance is $1.49. It's slightly expensive, but I mean not expensive as I thought it was. I thought it was like $3, but no. Yeah, it's definitely something you got to include in this deck because of just the insane power of being able to get so many rats so fast. And on the topic of getting all your rats onto the battlefield, let me talk to you about Secret Salvage. 3 black black for a sorcery. Exile target non-land card from your graveyard. Search your library for any number of cards that share the same name as that card. Reveal them, put them into your hand, and then shuffle your library. Okay. You need to have a non-land card in your graveyard. I guess that would be Rat Colony, right? And then you exile it. Okay, so you're getting rid of one of your Rat Colonies, and then you search your library for all the rest to put them in your hand. Ooh! You just got 20, 26, 25, probably about 20 Rat Colonies into your hand for 5 mana. Or if you don't want to draw that many, maybe you only need a couple because you're just low on hand. Maybe you don't have infinite mana, or not infinite, but maybe you don't have a lot of mana to spend on it. So you just want some Rat Colonies. Maybe you want 5. That's still 5 cards for 5 mana. It's just good draw. Anyways, we only have a couple more cards to talk about, so we're almost done here. This is going to be a slightly quicker episode, I think. I don't know. I can't see what the length of this recording is. That's one thing. That's another thing that changed with the layout. Can't see the lengths of how recording, so never know how long the video is going on. That's a fun one. Gotta pay attention to my clock. It is almost 9 o'clock. That made you yawn, didn't it? You filthy troglodyte. Watching people yawn and then yawning because of it. I see you. So does Vampiric Rites. Vampiric Rites says, 1 for an enchantment. 1 into black, sacrifice a creature. You gain 1 life and draw a card. Alright, 2 cost, gain a life, draw a card, and go through a rat. Good. Martyr's Cause. 2 into white for an enchantment. Sacrifice a creature. Prevent all damage to a creature or player from one source. And then I'm also going to talk about Fanatical Devotion here. 2 into white for an enchantment. Sacrifice a creature. Regenerate target creature. I have these 2 cards, Fanatical Devotion and Martyr's Cause, because they're free sack outlets, and people who play Magic know the power that free sack outlets have. Just being able to say, anytime you're about to die, you sack all your creatures and then you do whatever you want. You do a bunch of stuff with this. So it's not necessarily the best free sack outlets, but it's something really powerful, especially since we have this second color of white in here. Like, the majority of the deck is swamp and black, but you have just enough of the white cards to be able to say, alright, I have certain things that I want to use. I want to use a free sack outlet. I want to use all these cool extort cards, but I also want to be able to take advantage of the fact that I have so many rat colonies. So you're going to need a lot of black mana to cast the rat colonies, but you're also going to need a lot of colorless, and that leaves you open for a second mana color. You can run most rat colony decks for EDH, and most Relentless Rats, which is a similar card, are run with mono black and with a rat general. But I feel an Athreos deck, a rat Threos deck, if you will, is slightly more useful in a rat colony, because you just have access to certain things that you don't have in monocolor. Especially Athreos' own ability you have access to. So that's something cool that I found, because these guys are cheap. 25-cent cards. As opposed to a, what are they called? The altars. There's a couple altars out there that are just expensive. There's the ones that give you mana that I can't think of the name of right now. Phyrexian altar, that's one of them, and I don't know what the other one is. But those ones are expensive because they can be broken. But these ones aren't as broken. They're just good. They're just decent free stack outlets, and I like that. Grave Purge. This goes along with a couple other cards like this. 2 into black for an instant. Put any number of target creature cards from your graveyard on top of your library and draw a card. Alright, cool. Rats died. You put them back onto your library, because just to make sure, in case people pay the life too much than you want them to, that's when you need to bring them back with something like Grave Purge, or something like Champion. Okay, I only have 2 of them. I forgot I did. There was one more. I took it out because I needed to take some things out. Champion of Stray Souls. Anyways, 4 and black for a 4/4 Skeleton Warrior. 3 black and tap, and sacrifice X other creatures to return X target creature cards from your graveyard to your battlefield. That's neat. You just sacrifice a bunch of creatures and bring a bunch of creatures back. That's just something good to have. I like it. And then, his other ability, 5 black, and put Champion of Stray Souls on top of your library from your graveyard. Someone kills him, they decide to pay the life because they don't like that you're bringing your rats back when you need them, and being able to sacrifice your rats in mass and just make people die. So they say, kill him, and then you put him right back on your library, draw him again, play him again, and keep sacking rats. Call for Unity. 3 white, an enchantment with Revolt. At the beginning of your end step, if a permanent you controlled left the battlefield this turn, put a Unity counter and call for Unity. Creatures you control get +1/+1 for each Unity counter and call for Unity. Anytime a rat dies, or not anytime, any turn a rat dies, on any of your turns a rat die. Alright. Any of your turns, So about once per round, which should happen every single round when you're running X1, 2/1s that just keep attacking. They're going to be dying. So every round, it increases the power and toughness of your creatures by 1. Power is good. Toughness is really good since they only want 2/1s. They only have 1 toughness, so they die to anything. But it's just good. Good. Call for Unity. What's next? Extinguish All Hope. 4 black for a sorcery. Destroy all non-enchantment creatures. It's a board wipe, because sometimes you just need a board wipe. You know? Gruesome Fate. I think this is the last one? Yes, it is. Our final card on the list. Gruesome Fate. 2 into black. Sorcery. Each opponent loses 1 life for each creature you control. Straight damage to the face. Equal to how many creatures you control, which is a lot. So, there you have it. Didn't talk about ramp. It's just ramp. Ramp is ramp. I didn't talk about lands because lands are lands. But you can look in the deck list in the description, where you can also like, comment, and subscribe. This has been hreos, God of Passage.